Today I'd like to show you how to make one of my favorite trims for knitting panels of any kind, whether scarves, shawls, or blankets. It's non-rolling and it looks nice from both sides of the work. You use it where you would otherwise use perhaps garter stitch because it is non-rolling and makes the edge sturdy. The trim can be made on a single straight knitting board or a circular one, but today I'm going to show you how to do it on a double knitting board. For this to work well on a double board, it needs to be possible to bring the two rows of pegs as close together as mine are, or at least almost as close together. This loom was specially made for me by Cindy Wood. One of the special things about it is that the distance along a board from peg to peg, which is 5/8 of an inch, can be matched by the difference between the boards from peg to peg. That's not always the case. While your loom need not be able to achieve identical distances from peg to peg along the side as to across the board, you don't want undue gaps across the board or the stitches will be a peculiar size and not match those that run along the board. I have the specs for this loom posted on my website, and I'll put a link to that page in the program notes. For this design, we're going to keep the scarf from rolling with these tucked purl stitches. And this time, the purls are going to show on the right side of the fabric. So they're here, 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 and here on the board away from us. I'm going to call that the back board. And to make them tuck, I'm slipping the first stitch of this row, so one of the tucked purls is the very first stitch. And I'm going to wrap it but not knit it every time we're going from right to left. Then knit across. For this particular project, I'm knitting a diamond cable, and there's a video about that. But this edging could be applied to pretty much any scarf or blanket. This stitch, it gets wrapped but not knitted. The front board stitch gets wrapped and knitted. This is this one, wrapped and not knitted. Last front board stitch gets knitted. What makes it tucked is that collection of a spare loop. Now, knitting back from left to right, we're going to knit both of those loops over. The wrap is completely normal. Wrap with two loops, knit them both over, and then continue on with whatever portion of the pattern we're in. I've used this trim quite a lot, both in loom knitting and in machine knitting. It always does a nice job. And I think it's a little bit easier to knit and quicker than garter stitch. Not that that's a major concern, but it is nice to have a simple option. We have reached this stitch, so we'll wrap the peg, knit two loops over, wrap the front peg, knit over, wrap the back peg, knit two loops over, and the entire project will be edged in the same manner, alternating those two rows. You can use this technique on a panel of any width as long as you remember that the outer stitch on both ends of the loom should be a knit stitch. And the first one that's prominently visible on the purl side is a tucked purl stitch. Here's how it looks on the loom. The board that the fingers are pointing at is the one that is near me as I'm knitting. It's creating what is the knit side of the fabric. So here are the two end stitches. On the opposite board, these are holding the tucked purls. Let's look at that a little larger, at least on one end. Here are the tucked purls, the second and the fourth pegs from the end of each end of the loom.